Hello and welcome back to the speaker studio here at Open Banking Expo in Canada. And joining me on the sofa is Mauricio from GFT. Good afternoon, Mauricio.
Good afternoon to you too, thank you.
Great stuff. You've been busy today. You've already run, you've chaired a panel on regulation. How did that go?
Yeah, I think it went very well because we had a lot of people that provided different perspectives from the broader ecosystem of financial services. So people from banks, people from the Canadian Bankers Association, people from fintechs, also from the regulatory standpoint. So I think it was very interesting to hear all the perspectives on what's making, what should be the next steps for Canada to adopt open banking and make it a reality.
And did you manage to come to a consensus with that broad range of groups?
Yeah, I think not a consensus, I would say.
Okay.
A lot of good thoughts and good ideas and how, I mean, the main thing is collaboration between government, between financial institutions, between fintechs. Like there's no secret sauce for that. But actually the collaboration is the only way to go forward. And but a lot of good ideas.
So the panel at least manifested a desire to move forward, right?
Yeah, I think the desire has been always the case, and there's a slow progress, as we all know here. And but things are looking up in terms of what are the next steps. Like for example, if we talk about the regulation, we last year we have an act that was already approved, like 2024. That's like the basics of the regulation. To give you an example of what I mean is like it establishes the read-only data sharing, right? It establishes how the consent should work. It establishes that there has to be a technology standard. It doesn't say which standard. That's part of what's next. Mm-hmm. It appoints the FCAC to be the governing entity for open banking in Canada. So there's the basics there, and it puts early 2026 as a starting point. But then what has to come next? Like those are not detailed regulations, so you have to drill down and put the detailed regulations in terms of, what's the standard? Is it this or that? So banks, generally FIs, fintechs, will definitely know if the standard is what they are all expecting and all the investments they have made are really there, or they have to adjust.
Yeah, okay. There's been an interesting conversation on this sofa about the balance between regulation and innovation. Are there any countries that you guys have seen that develop that Canada can draw from? Yeah,
we actually participated as GFT and as people that were not in GFT at that moment in the UK, but now are part of our team. And we participated in the early days in the UK. So there was a lot of discussion about how flexible and how risk management is a part of the conversation as well, but how to make it easier for the smaller entities, right? It shouldn't be a two-tier ecosystem. And what I mean by that is regulation may apply or may be easier to comply with for the bigger institutions. But what happens with the smaller ones? Is that going to be a big red tape? Is that going to be something that the cost is not going to allow them to do business? So that has to be very clear on how you put regulation and allow for that to be, for them to keep on innovating. You know, fintechs, it's their bread and butter. It's how they really operate in the marketplace. And if they're very strictly limited, then it's going to be a problem, right? And there's countries like Brazil, for example, that, I mean, all of the countries have done a phased approach in terms of open banking, but Brazil is a good example of how initially the central bank was the one overseeing everything, and now they created a separate entity that it's overseeing the same thing with specific regulations and specific boundaries. Mm-hmm. And that has created a very good relationship with the, let's say, the private sector, the FIs and the fintechs and everyone, to really be part of defining or designing that regulation, so it will be a balance between risk management and flexibility how to operate. So again, there's no perfect scenario. It just has to be like the starting point to really get the traction, and you can adjust as you go, right? If you want to get it perfectly from the get-go, you're never going to get there. So I think that other countries have done this phased approach, which has made them able to adjust and keep on enhancing the system to be really flexible.
But that should put Canada in a good place, right? Because it means we can look across other countries, Brazil, the UK, you mentioned, to name but a few, how they're doing it and start to embrace that. So is it just we need to make a decision, we need to get that detail of what it's going to look like? Are we perhaps not as far away as we might seem?
I think you've made a good point with that, because we cannot make the same mistakes. We can make other mistakes.
Yeah, new ones. Yeah.
New ones. So we have to be original in that and creative. But we have a lot of examples of what's been working or what's not been working, and the evolution that some of the most mature countries have. For example, European Union, how they managed to put together or orchestrate between all the countries to be able to interoperate between the countries, right? I mean, there's still the European Union, but there's some of the regulations are very specific to that. So how do you manage that, right? So that's a very important point, and I even talked about it in the panel today. Like, we have a lot of examples. Our starting point has an advantage because we can learn from others' mistakes, and we can have a safer and more certain path in order to be successful.
Great. So what do you think what conversation we can have on this sofa in 12 months? What do you think the future holds?
Hopefully we will be talking about how we are already in execution mode.
Okay.
Hopefully not in waiting for legislation to come. I mean, 2025 still has half of the year to end, but there's specific things that have to be put in place in order for early 2026 to start execution. So hopefully, next year we will be talking about how things started, how are we executing, if we're seeing traction in the marketplace, and really about real life experiences, and not about, hopefully next year we will be in this situation.
Well, maybe next year you can chair a panel on how well it's going.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
That would be the best scenario.
Great stuff. Mauricio, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for joining us on the sofa, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Great.